Good evening and welcome to the Scarborough Town Council Hybrid Special Meeting on Wednesday, July 29th, 2026. Would you please rise if able for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jody, could you please call the roll?
Counselor Doherty,
Here.
Counselor Kane,
Here.
Counselor Donovan,
Here.
Counselor Anderson,
Here.
Chairman Bellows.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. First item of business, item number 4.1, order number 26-065, act on the request for an executive session pursuant to Title I MRSA Section 4056E in consultation with legal counsel regarding a legal matter to return to public session at 6 p.m. Just to be clear, this is a completely unrelated matter that was already on our docket. We'll be adjourning to conference room to discuss that. We'll be coming back here and we'll reopen the meeting at 6 o'clock. And I'll go over the rest of the agenda then. So with that, are there any questions from the council? Motion? Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. We'll adjourn. Good evening again. Welcome back to the Scarborough Town Council hybrid special meeting. The date is Wednesday, July 29th, 2026. We are reconvening, coming back from executive session. I appreciate everyone's understanding and patience while we did that. I know it's a little awkward, a little unusual, and we're kind of doing our best to handle all the logistics here this evening, given the high level of interest. We also have a counselor, Counselor Hayes, who is out of state with family. This is a special meeting. We didn't have a meeting scheduled for this time of year, typically this part of the summer. And so she'll be participating remotely. And just as a note for counselors, because of that, when we get to a vote later, we'll be doing a roll call vote. So with that, I want to just give a quick overview of sort of the sequence of how we intend to do things this evening. We do have just the one item on the agenda, which is the proclamation that I think many of you have seen. My intent is to give a very brief introduction, to then read the proclamation, the draft proclamation, into the record and for everyone to hear. I will then open it up for public comment. And once public comment is completed, we'll see if there's a motion and a second. And if so, we will have discussion over the proclamation, and then we'll vote on it, and that will be it. We did budget about an hour for this meeting tonight. We want to try to make sure everyone who wishes to speak has a chance to do so. So I just ask you when we get to that to please be cognizant of that, cognizant of your neighbors, and try to be as concise as possible. Keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. There'll be a light up there. When it starts blinking red, that's kind of your signal to wrap it up. Again, because of the nature of the crowd here and the need to try to be efficient, we really ask you to please not applaud or call out or anything like that. Just general kind of common courtesy ground rules. So thanks again for bearing with all of that. With that, I will move on to item 5.1 on our agenda, which is Proclamation 26-004, calling for safe, respectful communities and requesting congressional engagement regarding federal immigration processing operations at 40 Manson-Libby Road. This is this council's sort of attempt to try to be responsive to the tragic events in Biddeford earlier this month, as well as ongoing concern about the presence and activities of the ICE facility that's located in our town. We had some discussion, as some of you may know, at our last regular council meeting a couple of weeks ago, and while I won't presume to speak for the council, obviously, there seemed to be a consensus that there was openness to considering some sort of measured proclamation that would recognize the concerns, express solidarity, and perhaps call on our federal representatives to look at what might be done about the facility and the activities there. So with that, I will read this proclamation and then we will go from there. Town of Scarborough, Maine, Proclamation 26-004, calling for safe, respectful communities and requesting congressional engagement regarding federal immigration processing operations at 40 Manson-Libby Road. Be it proclaimed by the Council of the Town of Scarborough, Maine, and Town Council assembled that, whereas the Town of Scarborough mourns the tragic and senseless loss of Johann Sebastian Guerrero, whose death in Biddeford has deeply affected families and communities throughout southern Maine, and we extend our sincere condolences to Mr. Guerrero's family, friends, loved ones, and all those who are grieving during this difficult time. And whereas the Town of Scarborough stands in solidarity with the residents of Biddeford as they process the grief, pain, and uncertainty resulting from this tragedy, and recognizes the profound emotional impact such events have on communities striving to remain places of safety, belonging, and mutual respect. And whereas the Town of Scarborough is committed to fostering a safe, welcoming, and inclusive community where all residents are treated with dignity, respect, and fairness, regardless of their background, origin, or immigration status. And whereas Scarborough values the many contributions of immigrant individuals and families who enrich our community, strengthen our economy, and help make our town a vibrant place to live, work, and raise a family. And whereas recent events in Biddeford involving a fatal encounter between federal immigration enforcement personnel and Johann Sebastian Guerrero have raised serious concerns regarding public safety, transparency, community trust, and the role of federal immigration enforcement within our region. And whereas Scarborough recognizes that investigations and official reviews related to the Biddeford incident may be ongoing and supports a full, fair, and transparent review of the circumstances surrounding this loss of life. And whereas Scarborough affirms that every human life possesses inherent dignity and worth, and that the loss of life under any circumstances should be approached with compassion, reflection, and a commitment to preventing future tragedies. And whereas Scarborough unequivocally condemns violence, loss of life, intimidation, threats, and acts of hatred in all forms, regardless of their source or target. And whereas the town further affirms that individuals who engage in violence, promote fear, or act contrary to the values of respect, civility, and peaceful coexistence are not reflective of the character or aspirations of the Scarborough community. And whereas many residents have expressed concerns regarding the presence and operation of a federal immigration processing facility at 40 Manson Libby Road and its impact on community trust, neighborhood character, and Scarborough's values of safety and inclusion, and that the town of Scarborough respectfully calls upon Maine's congressional delegation, including Senator Susan Collins, Senator Angus King, Representative Shelley Pingree, and Representative Jared Golden, to engage with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the General Services Administration, and other appropriate federal agencies to: 1, review the existing facility and evaluate alternatives. Work with the relevant federal agencies to review the continued use of 40 Manson Libby Road as a federal immigration processing facility and evaluate alternatives, including the relocation or discontinuation of such operations at that location in a manner that balances public safety, community trust, and the values of the Scarborough community. 2, promote transparency and community engagement. Call for increased transparency, accountability, and meaningful community engagement regarding federal immigration enforcement activities affecting Maine communities. 3, uphold standards for federal conduct in Maine. Ensure that federal actions conducted within Maine respect human dignity, civil rights, public trust, due process, and community safety, and commit to raising concerns with federal officials should evidence emerge that these standards are not being upheld. Be it further resolved that the town of Scarborough supports peaceful civic engagement and constructive dialogue and encourages all residents to express their views through lawful, respectful, and democratic means. Be it further resolved that the town of Scarborough expresses its heartfelt sympathy to the family of Mr. Guerrero, to the people of Biddeford, and to all those impacted by this loss, and reaffirms its commitment to fostering a community where differences are addressed through dialogue, understanding, and the peaceful rule of law rather than violence or fear. Be it further resolved that this proclamation shall not be interpreted as opposition to lawful immigration enforcement. Rather, it reflects the town's expectation that such enforcement be conducted in a manner consistent with the values of safety, transparency, accountability, and respect for all people. In witness whereof, this proclamation is hereby adopted this 29th day of July, 2026, by the Town's Council of the Town of Scarborough, Maine. I'd like to thank Councilor Anderson for taking the lead on drafting this. It's very much appreciated. I personally think it reflects the nature of our discussions at the last meeting. So before we entertain a motion and have council discussion and vote, as I mentioned, we're going to open it up to public comment. Another point that I'd like to mention is that, again, this is the only item on our agenda this evening. I know that there have been discussion and calls for additional action and that the council pursue other avenues. We would take that under advisement going forward, but we're not in a position to take any further action here this evening. So I just wanted to put that out there and make that clear. So with that said, I'd like to go ahead and open it up to public comment. See, we have a line set up over here along this wall. And I just invite folks to come up to the podium again. Please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Please be please be civil and respectful. Thank you. Oh. Well, we had a question from the audience whether we're limiting this to Scarborough residents. We are not.
Yeah. Yeah. We live here.
I don't know why.
He wasn't murdered here.
Exactly.
I would,
Why should a non-resident get to speak? Period. I mean, I'm sure that.
I would ask that we give priority to Scarborough residents, given the nature of this, but we don't typically limit comments to Scarborough residents. We err on the side of respecting First Amendment rights, and we want to hear from everyone who wants to speak.
Mr. Chairman, you're going to let everybody speak, right? I mean, there's going to be time for everybody to speak, right? Or are we going to cut it off?
I think trying to have everybody speak would be difficult. I don't know, I don't have a suggestion for how we limit it, but I think what you introduced to start with is that the original timing of this meeting was to run till 7 o'clock.
Correct.
We started a little bit late, so we can go further than that, I think, but
All right. And I would ask, and I do appreciate the feedback and all the sentiments. I would ask that if people going forward could try to refrain from just calling out from the audience, but let's go ahead and get going, and we will see how it goes.
I think you could also have some consideration around, because there's a 3-minute limit, doesn't mean you have to use it all in consideration of the other speakers.
Thank you. Please.
Good evening, members of the town council, and members of our community, in Scarborough, and for anyone who has come here, from other towns in the state of Maine. We appreciate your support and your willingness to come out and be with us and stand with us. And, at the end of the day, this is an issue that is bigger than just one town. It is an issue that is being felt by people all around the state, all around the country. I want to begin by saying that the murder of Johan Guerrero should not have happened. And I pray that he rests in peace, and my thoughts are with his family and friends and everyone who's been affected by that tragedy. I'm here because I'm not a politician. Honestly, I don't really like politics. Too often it's a game of talking around problems instead of solving them. I'm a straightforward person. If something is wrong, believe that it is right to say that it is wrong. And again, this murder shouldn't have happened. This facility shouldn't be here. For years, people in this community have warned about what could happen. Many people in this room have spent years protesting it. Main slogan is the way life should be, and this isn't it. Our immigrant neighbors should not have to fear for their lives. People of color should not have to fear for their lives. People should not fear exercising their constitutional rights. I can speak for myself that although I am an American citizen, I too feel fear for my life, for my ability to drive safely, for my ability to exist safely. And again, I am an American citizen. I was born to parents that came from a different country as political refugees, but I am an American citizen. So I cannot imagine the fear that our undocumented neighbors feel. And this isn't right. This is happening in our town. This is happening in our state and cities around the country. And I don't believe this is who we are. I currently work with undocumented people and many people of color, and I've heard stories from people who were beaten for their political beliefs, jailed for wanting to vote, and women being assaulted simply for just wanting to have a say. For many, America is a symbol of peace and a place of refuge. Maine at its core is a major part of that story, a major part of that promise. in Scarborough and just Maine in general, we are the kind of place where we wave to strangers. We help someone push their car out of the snow if they're stuck and lend them a hand without asking where they're from. That's the Maine I know. As a Christian, I believe in prayers, but I also believe God gives people the opportunity to answer those prayers through action. I only have 30 seconds left to speak, so I'm gonna.
Okay, I'd please ask anyone who is engaging in any provocative activity in the audience to just refrain. Thank you.
Not making, stop it.
I can make whatever I want.
We just asked you to be quiet.
You're making a comment right now.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead and wrap up.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you for speaking up. For those who spoke up, I appreciate you, and thank you for your words. There's always going to be voices that will speak out and say their opinions, even though they may not be the correct ones. So, me and others have put together this petition, and it has legally defensible policies that have been put into place in different places. There's precedent for these that you can take a look at. It's been signed by over 375 Mainers and over 175 Scarborough residents. So I just want to bring that to you. I ask you and urge you to consider these policies. We did this in a very short amount of time. And I'm sure if we had more time, there would be a lot more signatures on this petition. Because again, Maine is a place where people come to be. We're known as vacation land. Our quote is the way that life should be. This isn't it.
Thank you. Could you please just state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, my name is Bonnie. I'm not necessarily, I don't necessarily feel safe enough to give my address, but I live in Scarborough off of Black Point.
Thank you. And I do ask folks to please just state your name and generally where you live or your affiliation, if you're comfortable with that.
No, I'm out of
Thank you.
here.
Thank you.
If people please speak in the microphone because it's hard to hear.
Thank you. Yeah, so for anyone who didn't hear, if you do come up to speak, please try to speak directly into the microphone so everyone can hear. We have a big crowd here, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair Fellows, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Sophie Warren, and I'm fortunate to represent part of my hometown here in Scarborough, Maine. First, I want to thank you for bringing forward this proclamation. I think it's an important step in recognizing the grief, the fear, the anger that so many people are feeling following the killing of a Mainer in Biddeford, a father, husband, neighbor, worker, employee, a friend to so many. That was Johan, and he is dead. I appreciate the council using its voice in this way. It tells our community where we stand, but I don't think we can stop with beginning of an important conversation. I think we need to ask at every level of government, what else can we do? And I have asked that question of myself for about 5 years. I've organized around ICE. I've protested at the processing facility before it was opened, and I've worked at the state level through the legislature to limit ICE's activities here in Maine. So I don't come here pretending that at any level of government we have infinite ability or all the answers. But I come here because this moment requires we do all that we can, exhaust every option and opportunity before us. Scarborough residents who care deeply about this issue have informally come together to protest regularly. And they recently met with both the police chief and Scarborough Police Department officers and Autumn. and have received very positive cooperation in giving of their time and helping us in regards to keeping protesters safe and sharing information that they have available to us. From that and other conversations, we believe that there are at least 3 actions this council can consider. Those are listed in the petition given to you from Bonnie, the previous speaker. Importantly, none of these ideas require Scarborough to reinvent a theory of municipal authority. Each has precedent in other Maine and American communities that can provide a legally tested starting point for our own town attorneys and council to examine. Briefly, first, Scarborough can consider an ordinance limiting the use of municipal resources and personnel to assist federal civil immigration enforcement, except where cooperation is legally required. Waterville and Bar Harbor have most recently pursued this. Second, Scarborough can formally investigate the operation of the ICE facility in our community and affirmatively enforce every local law, zoning requirement, land use approval, permit condition, and other municipal requirement that applies to it. There's precedent in Oregon for doing this that was challenged by a higher court and upheld as recently as February of 2026. You should be using FOIA requests, and you should not just speak to our federal delegation, but ask them to join us here and talk about how we can work together. Third, we can take concrete steps to protect public safety and create accountability around ICE's presence in our community. The council can direct the Scarborough Police Department to establish clearer policies and procedures for demonstrations at ICE facilities. People exercising their constitutional rights should know what they can expect from their local police departments when someone feels their safety has been threatened. All of these are precedents that other communities have already taken affirmative steps and found legally enforceable metrics to put into their local statutes at the municipal level. Scarborough cannot determine federal immigration policy, but we can determine what our community does and how they do it. I'm committed to doing the same work at the state level, and I am ready to work with every member of this council who wants to find a constructive, lawful path forward. And I thank you for the beginning of that conversation here tonight.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Molly Lecomte. Going to try to make this a little shorter. I would like to start with, sorry, I am from Scarborough. I am a constituent, and I'm also speaking on behalf of my friend who is a teacher in South Portland, Maine, who is also a constituent of Scarborough. She is a special ed teacher, specifically life skills. So kiddos who many cannot even wipe themselves, and they are also people of color. In South Portland High School alone, throughout the weeks, students have sporadically been absent because of ICE presence at not only bus stops, but also at their homes. These children missed weeks of school breakfast, lunch, and also missed the locker project, which feeds 20% of our town, and I cannot imagine how many other towns percentage. These children are severely disabled and hungry due to ICE. Specifically, if they weren't there, they'd be in school. For myself, I work at one of the Maine's biggest processing plants in accounting. I need you to understand, businesses in Maine do not have local people to do these jobs. We do not seasonal work. My company has paid hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years in order to get these people in Maine to do the work they are legally allowed to do. And I cannot imagine being hurt or worse due to just having to try to get my family a better life. We must have our police stop even looking in the direction of ICE. It is insane that I can no longer trust the community police officers, not knowing if I am to say that I have a friend of color that they might tip off ICE and end up outside their door. Additionally, there has been far too many red flags with the ICE officers. Officers, if you can call them. An officer murdered this man was approved by ICE after being not approved to be a police officer in Hollowell and other towns. He tried multiple times. ICE is not looking into these people. They are not vetting appropriately because they're just trying to do quote unquote catch of the day. This is not the Scarborough I grew up in. This is not the Maine I grew up in. And you need to do the right thing if you can call yourself Americans. My family came from Canada, from Germany, not too long ago. Irish weren't allowed to work. They were doing it again, and we'll do it again. And if we continue this fear and if we continue this racism, we will not be the Maine. We will die out. Although the population of white people is going to die out, no one's going to move here. Immigration is America's superpower. You must pass this proclamation, and you must do more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Breath after that one. Chair, fellows, members of the council and the community, thanks for calling this meeting and thank you for the work on this proclamation. I speak as a Scarborough resident. My name is Mary Ellen Galante. I live in West Scarborough. I'm a retired nurse midwife, having worked years in Haiti, Mexico, and Guatemala, and with immigrants in the United States. Now retired, I volunteer with the Maine Immigrant Rights Coalition and the Maine Association of New Americans. I share with everyone here a deep sense of grief, shame, and outrage at the murder of Juan Sebastian Duran Guerrero and the violent human trafficking of our neighbors by ICE. The murder of this innocent man here legally could have happened to any one of us. The criminally negligent screening and training of the ICE agent involved belies the propaganda that they are apprehending the worst of the worst in the name of public safety. Just 6% of those arrested during the so-called catch of the day in January during the ICE surge had criminal convictions. The worst of the worst are the ICE agents who daily violate our nation's laws and civil rights. The due process clause in our Constitution has no asterisks. No one is excluded. This fact alone makes the actions of the officers based in the Scarborough ICE facility illegal. My objection to the town council's declaration as it currently stands is that it places all of the responsibility for action on our federal delegation and none on our town. One phrase I want to highlight that I find personally offensive in the declaration is where it says, comment referencing the standards of federal behavior, that Maine's congressional delegation should, quote, delegation should, and I quote, commit to raising concerns with federal officials should evidence emerge that these standards are not being upheld. How is Juan's murder not clear evidence that the standards are not being upheld? I believe that our town council can take several actions, among them to formally, as has been mentioned, formally investigate the operation of the facility, enforce every law and zoning regulation that applies, and use the power of the Freedom of Information Act to get this information from ICE and the GSA. I have evidence that an overnight detention occurred at the facility last week in spite of this not being a permitted activity at that location. A man who worked as a delivery driver for a big box store, he was apprehended in the bathroom of his big box store. He has no criminal record and he has a work permit. He was kept overnight in Scarborough at the facility and shipped out to Massachusetts. He now has to raise between $2,000 and $5,000 bail and has to pay an additional $1,500 if he wants a letter from ICE saying he should not be detained again. This is an abomination. We have to do everything in our power to put an end to this kind of behavior. We're not in charge of federal immigration policy, but all eyes in Maine are on us as the only town in Maine that hosts a facility. All the grief and outrage that has been expressed and will continue to be expressed is not going to prevent the next murder. We need to pressure the federal delegation, but that's just the beginning of what's called for in this moment. Thank you.
So folks, we do obviously appreciate all of the input. So far, we're running about 5 minutes per comment, and I know that that people are very passionate about these issues, and we do appreciate hearing all of it. But it'll make it easier for us to get a chance to hear everyone if people can really try to adhere to the 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Tofi Thorne, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the organization that I work for, Presente Maine, and we have been supporting the family of Yohan Sebastian Duran Guerrero in the wake of the shooting as they navigate this unconscionable tragedy and violence that occurred just down the road from here. I want to be clear that tonight I'm not here to talk about paperwork. I'm not here to talk about legal status or court dates or immigration documents, because the truth is none of that matters. No piece of paper determines whether a human being deserves to live or die, full stop. Yohan was a father, a partner, a worker, a neighbor, and most importantly, a human being. And on July 13th, just over 2 weeks ago, he was shot and killed in cold blood on the streets of Biddeford. And this is much, much bigger than just one shooting. It is much bigger than Biddeford. It is much bigger than Maine itself, because we have been witnessing in our community a pattern of state-sanctioned violence happen and occur against our communities, not just here in Maine, but across the country. We've seen shootings at the hand of ICE in Houston with Lorenzo Salgado Araujo. Of course, we've seen Alex Preddy and Renee Nicole Good earlier this year in Minneapolis. And there have been more than 22 individuals that we know of who have died in ICE custody alone so far just this year in 2026. And now, of course, we have this killing in cold blood in Biddeford, like I mentioned, just over 2 weeks ago. But this violence and this criminalization is not new to us. In January, as others have referred to, we witnessed the occupation by ICE activity here in Maine that really never truly ended, at least to us on the ground every day. And at the time, we warned publicly that in meetings with local officials, in public comment, that this violence was inevitable. Someone was ultimately going to die the longer that we allowed ICE to remain embedded in our communities. And this means doing business with them. This means having contracts with them. This means taking their money. Either a community member, a legal observer, someone was going to die. And unfortunately, we are standing here proven right in the worst possible way. And the loss of this family that they will feel will be felt for the rest of their lives. Their 3-year-old daughter will grow up without a father. The wife will grow up without a husband. And this lifetime of grief has been created and dismissed by the same breath by this federal administration. So when we say no more, we ultimately mean it. We're not asking for another statement, another investigation that ICE controls. We're not asking for a review of use of force policy or a new report, because new training will not fix this issue. We are here to say that ICE has no business in our communities, not in our jails, not in our schools, not at our poll sites come November, not in our streets, not anywhere. If we want safe communities, ICE has no business being in them. Every single dollar, every agreement, every ounce of cooperation that any city and state gives this agency makes all of us less safe. Full stop. So that is why we will accept nothing less than the total dismantling of this lawless criminal agency. We refuse to yet again just grieve quietly and wait for change. because at this moment, our very survival is on the line. Our communities are under attack. It's not a hypothetical, it's not some day in the future, but it is today, now, and it will be tomorrow if no further action is taken. So that's why, just as I asked the Biddeford City Council last week, I'm again here tonight asking you all to stand with us with action and not statements. So what does that look like? As others have mentioned, that means dismantling the local
Sir,
infrastructure.
you are over your time, so please.
Oh, all right,
please
20
wrap up.
seconds. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just want to reiterate the calls that we must dismantle this local infrastructure. So that means the immediate closure of the Scarborough Ice facility and not passing it off the buck to some other town to let that be their problem. It must be closed immediately. And we also must further implement and enforce the ice laws that went into effect today, July 29th, because without any enforcement, these laws are toothless, and that falls on you as well. So I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your commitment to protecting this community, because until you do, none of us will truly be safe, and another death will only unfortunately be inevitable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mufalo, and I'm the Executive Director for the Maine Migrant Rights Coalition. I wanted to just start by thanking, the City Council for this proclamation. As you've heard, may have some tweaking to do, but thank you for the opportunity to introduce a proclamation like that. And to the Scarborough community, thank you for standing with our community. Most of you have been with us since the 13th. We haven't slept. We haven't slept. Some of you have been with us since January 20th. It's been a long, long month. Our communities don't have a summer. Our families are shut in. Most of you can go to the beach. They can't. I was just talking to the mayor, and as Tufa said, we were talking to the Bedford Council as well. And he was telling me yesterday that the immigrants in Bedford, the children are not coming out. They're sheltered in place. Somebody called me today. There's a funeral. We lost somebody in the Angolan community. And they called me today asking me if people can go to the cemetery on Saturday. We don't know how to secure anyone. So life as it is has changed. But thank you for this proclamation. Let's work on it. We're working with the state. We're working with our community organizations and key advocates for justice for Johan. But we're going to need each one of you. So thank you. Transparency in the investigation is going to be needed. We're going to be introducing demands next week as an organization, and we're going to be asking the city as well to work with us. And Scarborough is important because the facility lives here. So thank you so much for starting this conversation. These are tough conversations. These are painful conversations. There's a whole community whose life has changed. But I thank you for standing with us, for the volunteers that are helping us day in and out to answer those phone calls, to send food to communities who can't, to take children to school. Thank you. We're going to be working with federal as well. Our congressional officers, we're in touch with them. Everybody is in agreement. We're going to be working with the Attorney General. And we have so far almost 90,000 signatures that we'll be introducing to the Attorney General in the coming week. But thank you, Scarborough. Thank you, community, for standing with us. These are tough times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Ritchie. I'm a resident of Scarborough. Thank you for coming together tonight, Town Council, and having this important conversation. I'm here tonight both as a resident of this community and as a healthcare provider. Every day, I witness the impact that ICE enforcement is having on the health and well-being of our neighbors. This is not an abstract political issue to me. It is something I see in exam rooms and families and in our schools. I have patients who miss essential medical appointments because they are afraid to leave their homes. I have families struggling with food insecurity because parents are too fearful to go to work. I have cared for several pregnant patients whose partners were detained in the weeks leading up to the end of their pregnancy. And this terrified them, not knowing who would care for their children or what would happen if they went into a medical emergency alone. Fear has become a public health issue. As a resident and a parent, I see this trauma extending beyond the walls of the clinic. My own daughter has asked about a classmate, a new Mainer, and a child of color who disappeared from school for weeks during a period of heightened ICE activity in our community. Imagine the fear that child experienced. In medicine, we understand the profound effects of adverse childhood events. We know that chronic fear and trauma changes a child's physical and mental health, affecting brain development, lifelong health and educational outcomes, and even future generations. Many of our new Mainer families come to this country seeking safety after surviving war, persecution, or other unimaginable trauma. Instead of finding security, many are experiencing that trauma all over again. These are not isolated stories. They represent a community living under constant stress, and the consequences will outlast this moment. We will be caring for the physical and emotional effects of these policies for years, perhaps generations to come. We cannot accept fear as the price of living in our town. Tonight, I'm asking town leaders to stand with our community. Use your voices and your authority to oppose policies and practices that create fear, separate families, and undermine public health. Protect every member of our community, regardless of where they were born. Make it clear that our town values dignity, safety, compassion, and justice. History remembers the moments when communities choose to remain silent, and the moments when they choose to stand together. I urge you to choose courage. Stand up for our neighbors, stand up for our children, stand up for the health and humanity for everyone who calls this community home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for allowing us this opportunity to speak tonight and for taking this proclamation on. In the wake of the recent and terrifying act of violence in the neighboring community of Biddeford recently, I urge you to not only pass this proclamation, but also to make this your first step in doing all that can possibly be done in keeping our community safe. A group of us put together a community statement, if you will, like a petition that we plan to forward to our national delegation, asking that they do anything and everything within their power to get ICE out of Scarborough, which I want to make you all aware of and make the same request of you, because 542 people have signed this, and that's just a few times being out in public and seeing if residents wanted to sign it. So 542 people have signed our community statement. And basically it says that we as Scarborough residents feel more at risk for death and or injury due to the presence of ICE in our community. And I don't think we can argue that, because the evidence, the evidence is right in front of us with the recent murder that happened in Biddeford. We are at greater risk of injury or death due to the presence of ICE in our community. I'm speaking, of course, simply of Scarborough specifically because it's here, but I mean within our state and within our country. They don't act lawfully. They are violent. Obviously, other people have said what I want to say much more eloquently, and I know I'll keep my comment short, but basically, I just want to say that there will be a day coming, and I think it will be sooner rather than later, that the way that ICE is operating in our country, terrorizing communities, specifically immigrant communities and people of color, it will be seen for what it is. And it's racism without due process. It's just kidnapping. So I want to ask you to please, yes, pass the proclamation, and please commit to doing anything and everything within your power to do more than that, to protect our community, to make us safer, because right now we're at higher risk than we should be due to their presence here. Thanks.
Council members and neighbors, my name is Tristan, and I currently live in so-called Dunstan area of Scarborough, previously called Awuskig, or the land of many grasses, until colonizers arrived, constructed the rule of law, drew arbitrary borders, and put enormous strain on the environmental systems of these lands to make up the proper noun, Maine. If we were to define ourselves by our current language, describe the actions we took back then, using the laws and governance we've created, what would we call ourselves? Illegal immigrants, maybe. As a descendant of revolutionaries, I see the status of our current immigration and customs enforcement apparatus as a mirror that reflects the darkest shadows of American empire. I see the fear and the languaging used to justify the terrorization of new arrivals on this land as a projection of our own historical actions. The history of tomorrow, however, will be reflected in the actions that we take now. It is the decision to choose complacency or resistance to the pervasive tactics of white supremacy in this country. It is our responsibility to do better than our ancestors did, and ensure that all people on these lands have both dignified life and dignified end of life, unlike what we allowed to happen to Johann Sebastian Guerrero, our neighbor, by virtue of the tenancy of 40 Manson Libby Road. Shame on us. It is our collective responsibility to adopt suggestions in the aforementioned petition, to take every and all actions to discontinue operations at 40 Manson Libby Road. It is our collective responsibility to direct our congressional delegation to lead divestment of ICE and reinvestment in earnest community safety operations, like food security, water access, and healthcare. It is our collective responsibility to pass a town ordinance restricting all city employees from engaging in immigration enforcement and collaborating with ICE. We have the moral duty to change our positioning to the right side of history through these actions. So at very least, our grandchildren don't stand up in some town council in the near future throwing the same kind of shade on us that I just threw on my ancestors. I trust that we will do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the, members of the council, thank you for this meeting. My name is Chris. I'm a Scarborough resident. I go protest on Manson Libby Road a couple of times each week, and this is one of the signs I carry. They would tell you I'm in favor of due process. And they would tell you my protesting there means that I'm in favor of open borders. That is not true. But I am in favor of due process. And crashing into people's cars so you can grab them, then shipping them off to other states so their lawyers can't find them and get to them, that is not due process. Clearly, shooting people in moving cars, shooting the wrong people in moving cars is not due process. And as somebody already said, this is not the country I grew up in. I support law enforcement strongly. ICE is not law enforcement. ICE is lawless enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chris Lyon. I'm a resident of Scarborough in the Maple Avenue area. I work every day with immigrants in our community who exhibit the very same American values that I was raised to believe. The very same values that at the same time in this moment are being perversely utilized by our federal government to harm our friends and neighbors. And we should be scared of that. At its core, this is not about political beliefs, as much as people might have you believe it is. This is about an extrajudicial effort by our federal administration to terrorize our friends and neighbors. At the same token, it is also about our responsibility to do every single thing in our power to ensure that we hold accountability to those who act against the values of our community. I ask and I expect the council to proactively, not waiting for us, proactively and expediently share back with us as residents all potential actions beyond this proclamation today within our legal rights as a municipality to address and remove ICE operations from our community. Our congressional delegation is one part of the solution, but we should not wait and hope that they can address the size of the challenge that we face. We are accountable to each other as we stand for justice amidst the very real threats to the livelihoods and the lives of our friends and neighbors. We cannot wait for help to come. We ourselves hold great power today as a community and can exercise that power together with your leadership as 6 white men who understand that this is not right. I'd like to thank you, and I'd also like to ask you a question as we end. If the killing that we witnessed had happened here in Scarborough, would you act differently in your capacity as a counselor? And if the answer is yes, I would love to engage with you on what that looks like. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Steven Zamorowski. I live in Scarborough. My daughters and my granddaughters live in Scarborough. I want to thank you, gentlemen, and the councilwomen who are also active here, just so people know. I'm here tonight to express my support for law and order. The recent shooting in Biddeford further proves to me that ICE is a poorly vetted, poorly trained, poorly managed, and poorly led gang of lawless bullies who do not follow due process or safe and effective policing. We don't have to look far to find a good model for good policing. If you look at our website, the Town of Scarborough website, and look for our police principles, here they are. Respect. We will honor the individual worth and contributions of each member of our organization and community. Integrity. We will not compromise our moral or ethical principles. Accountability. We will address responsibility of our decisions. We will, accept responsibility for our decisions and our actions. Honesty. We will be forthright and truthful. Fairness. We will treat everyone in an equitable and a dignified manner. Empathy. We'll be sensitive to the needs and feelings of others and to the diversity of our community. That pretty much sums it up. And that sums up what ICE is not. I respect that you guys and the council have put this proclamation ahead to shut down ICE in our community. But I don't think that's enough, and it feels a little bit like NIMBY. What I would like to ask for is for you to send a letter to Susan Collins and the rest of the delegation to shut down ICE permanently, or at least until the point where they can do an independent and bipartisan investigation into the murders of Johan and Alex and Renee, and remediate the issues that are found in those practices. So if we do bring back ICE, we bring it back in a lawful way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jacob Rochfort, and I'm a Scarborough resident. I live just off of Sawyer Road. I've lived in Scarborough since 2020, which I realize is not as long as many of the people here. But Scarborough is my chosen home. Before that, my home was Biddeford, where I lived, where I grew up, where I was born, minutes away from where Johan was murdered by ICE. And the two things that both of my homes have had in common is a great sense of community, welcoming, and justice. I'm a descendant of French immigrants who walked down through the woods from Canada to Biddeford to work in the mills. That is something that they were sold, the American dream, that many are still sold on that today. What I don't see is anything in line between that American dream and the actions of ICE orchestrated by this administration. I would echo the thoughts of most of those who have spoken before me, that I want you to pass this proclamation. I want that to be the very first baby step in what we do to use all legal means to fight ICE up and to the abolishment of it. What happened to Johan was an absolute tragedy, and I don't think even those who support ICE could even disagree with that reasonably so. But we as a community that prides ourselves on being kind, welcoming, and a great place to live cannot have this facility in our own town and by default supporting it and still present that image. The two are incongruent. And so I ask you, the council, as many others have already done so, to pass this proclamation and then go further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dirk Yetten, Scarborough, Broad Turn Road. Served in the United States Army. Been up in this neck of the woods since '87, bulk of it in culinary. Working in the kitchens in the greater Portland area, Scarborough, whatnot. The largest contingent of people that were always consistent in that were our immigrants working alongside, feeding people, raising money for their families, just being people. I was thrilled that the council chose to deliver this proclamation. I couldn't have been happier. As some of the other speakers have said, I do think there's an area to take it further, and that we here in Scarborough handle this. We here in Scarborough make ICE not welcome, not because we're protesting or kicking them out of bars, but because they did break the law, because they aren't zoned for whatever it is. The federal government's not that smart. I think you all probably are. Portion of the proclamation discussing due process. That's a deal breaker right there. That's a non sequitur. They are not delivering due process. That's not how we do it. When you're on American soil, regardless of where you came from, you're protected by the Constitution of the United States, which I swore an oath to, protected against enemies, foreign and domestic. It seems a whole lot domestic. Having that facility in our town is a danger to our town. It's a danger to the ICE agents because of the anger it creates. It's a danger to the people who are protesting, or ICE agents are clipping them with cars. It really has no place in our society here. So I would implore the council to dig deep, find a way to get ICE out as soon as possible. Susan Collins isn't going to do anything. She just voted to give him more money. Troy Jackson isn't in office yet. Golden doesn't give a shit. He's retiring. Angus, you know. So what are we going to do? We need monsters on this. We need warriors on this. Smart, fearless, diligent to do the work, do the research, dig in, use the law, use the Constitution. We've got a federal government where the president ignores Supreme Court orders, federal court orders, They deported 267 people to a country they didn't even belong in after the court said, don't do that. What is that? So we take our power as Scarborough, Maine, the Tower of Power. Let's set the example for the rest of the country. We're not going to stand for this. I'm really proud of all y'all for stepping up, starting this conversation, engaging in a dialogue. This is just the tip, and we are the tip of the spear. That's it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kelly Kusnarak. I'm a resident of Scarborough. I have a little bit of a different opinion. I hope people can handle it a little bit. But I was just thinking about the legal side of all of this, and I'm not sure what kind of authority the town council has on all of this, but I believe that the property owner, if the town council, I don't believe that the town council has the authority to tell a property owner to cut the lease on a tenant just because a certain group of people in the town are offended by certain actions of the tenant's occupants. The federal government has a lease contract as well. I believe for this certain group of people to request our town council to have a property owner evict a tenant could create 1 or 2 lawsuits against the town of Scarborough. The property owner could possibly sue the town for forcing a lease to be cut and losing a tenant and loss of rent. The federal government could possibly sue the town of Scarborough as well for a loss of lease, having to relocate, and for getting in the way of deportation activity. And here's another thought to consider. If the town council did go through with this and shut down the ICE facility by evicting them, then let's look at this another way. What if a certain group of people living in a multi-unit housing development decided to have a proclamation with the town council to have the property owner evict certain tenants because their status is undocumented, asylum seeker, or they just have no legal status to be living in this country? If the town council can remove ICE officers by forcefully cutting their lease, then why can't the town council force evictions of groups of people that have no legal status here as a U.S. citizen? So if the group of Scarborough Dems really wants to take a better approach on this matter, and they are so concerned about protecting people with this status, why don't they approach these undocumented individuals and let them know they can self-deport? Self-deportation is the safest route for all of them, but many are just holding out. Each undocumented individual can receive up to $2,600 from the government and a one-way ticket back to their country of origin. Stop creating problems with the federal government. There are fines and penalties for interfering with deportations. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Kathleen Miller. I live on Broad Turn Road and I work in Biddeford. And I wasn't sure I was going to speak tonight, but I just want to bring the experience of working in a grieving community into the room, and just, for myself, as I go to work every day and I drive past memorials and I drive past people who are spending every day out there reminding people of this human life that was lost. I ask myself, am I doing enough? And I always come up short on that. And I want to say thank you for the proclamation first, for making that gesture. We're starting a process. I hope that this is the beginning of a conversation about how we can end the ICE facility in Scarborough, how we can get ICE out of Maine. I hope that you can take the invitation to ask yourselves, as human beings, as people with families, as people who love people who have been harmed, what is my action to do? What can I do better in your roles? And I appreciate all of your service and all that you do for the town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley. I do live in Scarborough, but I was born in Pennsylvania, so I am from away. I wasn't planning on saying anything today. I just wanted to show up and be here. But I was really inspired by the people on my street and the people on my street that spoke today. So we are part of the Scarborough community. I can't say as eloquently what everyone did about the violence and the unlawfulness that's going on, but I think something that I can add that's being from away, and I grew up in Saco. We were looking for a place to live, and we really looked in Scarborough because I'd heard about the community and the great place Scarborough was to live. And I've had ups and downs since living here, and some pros and cons about the Scarborough community. And I would just love for this to be one more step to really say that I'm proud to live in Scarborough now. I'm raising a child here, and I would just love that this would be a point to be a proud Scarborough resident. So I really appreciate the proclamation, but I hope you take it further and really stand up for what we need to happen. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cynthia Nye. I'm a resident of Old Orchard Beach. It's been a real privilege to be here tonight and to hear all this conversation. Thank you for the chance to speak and to hear each other. I am the warden of St. Nicholas Episcopal Church, which is on Route 1 in Scarborough. And I'm going to read a letter that was written by our leadership on behalf of the congregation. Dear members of the Scarborough Town Council, as the leadership and congregation of your local Episcopal parish, we write to you today with a spirit of deep collaboration, but with a profound sense of urgency. Guided by our faith's commitment to human dignity and the general convention policies of the Episcopal Church, we urge the Town Council to vote in favor of the pending proclamation, asking our local congressional delegation to evaluate the necessity of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility on Manson-Libby Road. The recent fatal shooting of Johann Sebastian Duran Guerrero by an ICE agent in neighboring Biddeford proves that the rapid escalation of federal enforcement in our region has reached a state of immediate crisis. We must act proactively. Passing this proclamation allows Scarborough to lead with moral clarity, addressing community fears before a similar preventable tragedy occurs within our own town borders. To ensure this evaluation yields meaningful safety and accountability, our congregation asks the Town Council to immediately integrate the following 2 urgent actions into its municipal agenda. First, we ask the town to immediately file formal Freedom of Information Act FOIA requests to audit the Manson-Libby Road facility's operations. Local zoning laws explicitly prohibit overnight detention at this site. The town must review federal documentation to verify exactly how long individuals are being held, ensuring strict adherence to our municipal codes. Second, we urge the council to enact a local municipal ordinance prohibiting all Scarborough town employees and local law enforcement from cooperating with or expending resources on ICE operations. While Maine's new state law cutting ties with federal immigration enforcement takes effect this week, our town requires a permanent local firewall. If a future state administration repeals these state-level protections, a local municipal ordinance will ensure Scarborough's community safety remains entirely independent and secure. By taking these steps, Scarborough will join other Maine municipalities, including Waterville and Portland, in establishing proactive local protections. We look forward to partnering with you to protect the peace, the safety, and the fabric of our community. Sincerely, the Bishops' Committee of St. Nicholas Episcopal Church. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Denise Hamilton, Scarborough. Like everyone, I was saddened by the tragic loss of life in Biddeford. No one wants to see anyone unnecessarily harmed.
and I support law enforcement conducting themselves professionally and with respect for every individual. My concern tonight is whether this proclamation is an appropriate use of the town council's authority. The facility at 40 Manson Libby Road is a privately leased federal immigration processing facility. It is not owned or operated by the town of Scarborough, the state of Maine, or the federal government. Yet this proclamation asks Congress to evaluate relocating or discontinuing operations at that location. I believe our town council should remain focused on the municipal issues that directly impact the residents and taxpayers of Scarborough. For that reason, I cannot support this proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Tammy. I am a Scarborough resident, and I wanted to thank you for bringing the proclamation forward and opening this conversation. I'm really glad it's occurring, and I'm thrilled with everything I've heard tonight, both pro and con. I am definitely in favor of the proclamation. I do think it is. I do think it's appropriate for you to talk about this, for us to talk about this. We are all part of the federal government. So we all have the opportunity and the responsibility to say what our opinions are about what our federal government does on our behalf. And the federal government is the tenant in this case. I'm not in favor of the town trying to evict any tenant. I am in favor of the town opening a conversation with everyone concerned about the appropriateness of certain tenants and their behaviors in the town. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rosemarie DeAngelis. I live in South Portland. I have served 6 years on the South Portland City Council. I served as mayor, and I presently serve as school board chair. I say this for a reason. I attended the vigil in Biddeford, the Biddeford City Council meeting, and I came again tonight. I came here because I support the majority of voices here, those voices in opposition to ICE. I grew up in Old Orchard Beach. I was born in Biddeford. I know this state as a place built by immigrants for immigrants. Unless a person is a Native American or a former slave, then that person, myself included, is also an immigrant. I support the council in prohibiting clapping because to allow clapping means you must also allow booing. And there is nothing here tonight for which anyone should boo. Clapping for opposing views, which also just happened recently. So I just encourage you to enforce that limit. We are here because we care, because we are friends, neighbors, family, because we want to bring change, make a difference, and to take action that matters. Not me. Sorry. God, I was thinking, like, who is so rude that they have their phone going off? So I was saying we are friends, neighbors, family, because we want to bring change, to make a difference, to take action that matters. My son is a man of color. My granddaughters, 3 of them, have brown skin, and I worry every day. That's why we're here. And so help us to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sam Cafone. I live on Route 1, Scarborough. That proclamation really doesn't have any teeth. I don't see where it's going to accomplish anything. You have a tenant down there that pays their rent and have a legal lease. As long as they're zoned for that and the building code's up, I don't know why it's the town's responsibility to be looking at it further than that. ICE has to be somewhere. They're just going to move to another community. They're not going away. If I'm the grandchild of immigrants from Italy that came in through Ellis Island, and they all did it right. They had 10 kids, 7 of them served in the military. I don't think it's the town's business. You've got a lot more things to be worrying about doing. I'm sorry for the lost life. I mean, I don't know that they're doing I'm a 30-year law enforcement officer, retired now. You don't stand in front of a vehicle. Why risk your life? You'd like to go home at the end of the night. That was stupid. So I agree there needs to be some more training there and give them some stop sticks or whatever, but I don't think it's up to the town, and I don't think that proclamation means anything, really. The state's already said law enforcement can't work with immigration officials. That took place today, as far as I know. I think we need to move on from it. I mean, I feel bad. I have two black grandchildren and plenty of black people in my family and some other people. And, you know, if they would do the right thing and not overreact, I mean, that's from a white person saying that. I guess it's different, but, you know, I disagree with the town doing anything with that. I'm sure you're going to pass it because I know what the majority of you have. So I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Good evening. My name is Sarah Lunt, L-U-N-T, and I live on Winnick's Neck Road in Scarborough. And I also work in Scarborough, and I work in the same business park that the ICE facility is currently also in. And I have raised a child who graduated last year in 2025 from Scarborough High School. And I am a sentient and involved member of this community. I work on behalf of Abbott Laboratories. I am not an employee of Abbott Laboratories. I am, however, the human resources person who's responsible for all of the contingent hiring that goes on at Abbott. And the vast majority of the people that we bring on board for Abbott for these relatively short-term work contracts are people of color, they are immigrants, they are new Americans, and who was it who said, you know, speak the truth even if your voice shakes? I think it was attributed to Eleanor Roosevelt, but I don't think she's the one who came up with it. So yeah, my voice is shaking. But I could not sit with myself in good conscience tonight without speaking up on behalf of people. And at this point, I would say hundreds and even 1,000 or more workers who did things like packed the contents of your COVID kits, and people who work long, crazy hours in conditions that I would not be able to work. It's hard work being on your feet, you know, 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours at a time, particularly during the COVID pandemic. I wanted to say that, yes, I appreciate your proclamation, and I appreciate John for John Anderson, who I believe is the person who primarily put it together. I would ask, and again, this is going to be, I don't want to presume to speak on behalf of people, but I can tell you that the people that I work with every day are filled with fear. They carry their papers with them. They carry their proof of citizenship. They carry their passports if they have them. And all of these people are properly vetted through several channels because Abbott has high standards for that sort of thing. So we've had one worker who was kidnapped by ICE
And he had full-on rights to be here as well, as much as any of us do. I think that the proclamation itself does not go far enough. I am also a renter. I don't own a home, but someone who spoke before talked about lease, a lease. And I think that as city councilors or town councilors, you do have the right to have a say. Every American citizen of Maine, citizen of Scarborough, resident of Scarborough, has a right to say something if the law is not being followed, if people are not being properly vetted, and if people commit crimes. I have a 20-page lease that I need to re-sign every single year, and it asks me not to do unlawful activity. I would assume that that includes murdering someone in cold blood. And I will tell you right now that my landlords, if I were to, what else is in there? Not have dogs, not have cats, not smoke drugs, not, do drug deals in the hallways, and certainly follow all of the laws and the statutes of the state of Maine. So it is my opinion that this proclamation, and thank you for your service and thank you for doing something. But like others have said, I think it's a start, and I think that you can do more. I would like you to make it have more teeth. And I think that if someone is being unlawful, regardless of whether they are paying their rent or not, that if they are breaking the law, then it is on each and every one of us to stand up and to stick our necks out and to speak even if our voice is shaking and to call it out for what it is.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I think we have one or two people online. Again, please try to respect the 3-minute.
Matthew, you can speak.
Hi there, my name is Matthew Keith. I'm a Scarborough resident on Pleasant Ave. And thank you. I want to thank the council. I know the original intention was to be done by 7, and I just want to really appreciate you all for allowing everybody who wanted to speak to have a chance to speak. That really means a lot. This is such a important and charged issue that, that just means a lot. So thank you. And I agree with a lot of the commenters that whatever we can do to go beyond this is important. But rather than speaking more about that, I'd like to speak a little to any counselors who might have some hesitations with even this. If there are any, I don't know. But, I think that you can be somebody who believes that immigration enforcement is important and that we should be law-abiding, and that you can even be somebody that believes even an undocumented immigrant should be deported, and we can have reasonable disagreements about that. But I would encourage you to consider just how far beyond the legal framework ICE has gone, and think about history and your children and people when they look back and look at this time and look at where we are now and where we're going. And we in Scarborough, unfortunately, have a facility here that is the home base for a lot of these things that are happening. And so you can fundamentally believe that an organization like ICE should exist and maybe even should be in Scarborough. But I hope you can see how far beyond the rule of law and scope of what something like ICE should be, we are. I mean, you just have to look at the head of ICE right now, who says that, this person who shot and killed a legal resident in Biddeford probably shouldn't have been hired. And so if even they can admit that, I hope that even those who might find some hesitation here can find a way to support this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adara?
Hi, my name's Adara. I'm a resident of Scarborough in the Pleasant Hill area. I am a third generation resident of Scarborough. My family immigrated here from Greece. And I just would like to say that this is not the Scarborough that I grew up in. This is not anything that me or many people that I know and love stand for. And I would just really strongly please beg of you to pass this and take further action on getting ICE out of Maine and out of our out of the US. And I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. All right. Please.
Thank you. Kathy Elliskew, I'm a Scarborough resident. I'm a retired nurse, a writer, and a grandma. In the winter, I go south to my daughters and I volunteer in the NICU, holding as many babies as I possibly can. As in my nursing career, it was very important to me to respect every single person I came in contact with. And this shooting in Biddeford really, really hurt. Our nurse midwife gave a lovely talk a little while ago and said this could happen to us, to any of us, and it did. This was us. I just want to go on record as saying I'm totally in favor of this proposal as a first step. I don't know how much of an impact it will have, but it's a first step and it's important. I'll also just mention quickly that I'm an associate of the Sisters of Mercy, a lay organization that supports the sisters. And one of our tenets is to welcome the visitor. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't have some rules about how it happens and make it even easier or better for how immigrants can come to our country and stay here, but it does mean we should be welcoming. So thank you for listening and what you're doing. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. I see one more online, and then I think we're going to be in a position to move on to council discussion.
Lynn, you can speak. Lynn, can you try to speak?
Okay, can everyone hear me?
We can.
Okay, I just have one thing to say. What we have are armed, masked federal government thugs roaming our streets, killing people. This is fascism, and I want it out of Scarborough. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. See, we have one more at the podium, and then we'll move on.
Thank you very much. My name is Don, and I live here in Scarborough in the Dunston area, actually now in Piper Shores. I think we should recognize, and I mean, this was such a travesty of terrible circumstances, this recent death. It's just heartbreaking. We should recognize that the eyes of the nation, and if not the country and the world, are now on Maine. If there's any good that comes from that terrible episode, it's that it gives us a chance to try and spread love rather than hate and show people how we can work in a democratic society. So I hope we can take advantage of that. You know, the all too obvious thing here is the underlying problem here is one of hatred. It really is an intolerance. bias, misjudgments. And unfortunately, we as humans all have a certain level of gullibility. Some of us more gullible than others. Obviously, about a third of the population is horribly gullible and will take anything they're fed. That's a hard thing to overcome. But I thank you for putting this effort together on this paper, and I'm certainly supportive of it. And I wish you all well.
Thank you. We do have one more online, and then I think we'll be set. Thank you.
Don, you can speak if you unmute yourself.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
We can hear you.
We can hear you, Don.
Oh, okay. First of all, thank you all for doing this. I've been watching from the beginning, and I just figured out how to raise my hand here. I don't want to repeat all of those things that have been said this evening. I agree with. I want to make a larger point, and that is that ICE is really becoming the federal government and perhaps our president's $170 billion hiring people with loyalty, violating their own policies with respect to what you were supposed to do when you stop a vehicle, resulting in the deaths of, as of today, 32 people either being in detention or shot on the street. And I think that what is happening here is that immigration has been and continues to be used as a wedge to divide us and to cause us to focus away from if you look at the bigger picture, you see that lawlessness takes place at many levels, including, for example, executing people from planes who are suspected as running drugs into this country. I think we're up to over 100 people have been killed in that respect. So I would echo the comments of the other folks here. I would say to all of you that, yes, the resolution is a good start. I would say it's not strong enough, but I appreciate the fact that this council appears to be recognizing the fact that all politics is local. Thank you again for your time. We've had a long night, and I appreciate taking me in at the end.
Thank you.
Sorry, I just have a quick historical remark to make regarding the localities of precedents of immigration law. So in 1849, during the sort of rise of California state and local governance, there actually was precedent for local governors not actually enforcing immigration enforcement. People have mentioned here the impact fiscally that immigrants have on our community, but actually immigrants are a fiscal benefit to Scarborough. What ends up happening is that immigrants will pay taxes, but they won't actually benefit from social services because they are not US citizens. So during 1849, they actually had to postpone the overwhelming anti-Chinese sentiment until the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act because of the benefit of the foreign miners tax. So essentially what had happened is that the governance systems of California all the way from 49 to 82 was entirely subsidized by immigrant labor, because they were paying taxes without receiving healthcare, education services, other resources that local governments provide. I am a Scarborough resident, but I'm not as much interested in proving whether or not I'm a citizen. I believe that if you see my skin color, that you will either believe I have the rights of a citizen and am a citizen, or you will not believe I have those rights regardless. People here have claimed the rights of American citizens. I would just like to mention the fact of the matter is the reason why so many of us are afraid is because if you get shot, you don't really get a chance to pull out your passport. So I'll just leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you mind stating your name for the record?
My name is Alex. And if you would like the historical records of various local governments from 49, I can provide those to, I actually haven't done town council, but I have relations with some of the school education board members that I can forward those emails to through them if you would like.
Great, thank you. Thank you again for all of the comments. And thank you everyone for being respectful and patient. I'd like to quickly note that we also have letters that we've received from Congresswoman Shelley Pingree, who is supportive, and as many of you know, has been very active in trying to investigate ICE activities at the detention center. We have a joint letter as well from State Representatives Drew Gatine and Kelly Murphy as well, who are generally expressing support of this approach, this proclamation, and potential further actions. State Senator Ann Carney is here this evening. I appreciate her coming and communicating with us about this. And we received many emails, as you can probably imagine, from with people with a variety of opinions, and we certainly read those and take those to heart. So thank you again. With that, we're going to turn to action, and I would welcome a motion.
So moved.
All right, discussion. John.
I'll kick us off. First, I want to thank everybody in the audience for coming tonight and for sharing your perspective and for really keeping your emotions in check, because I know this is very emotional for a lot of people. I don't know if I'm going to do as good a job as all of you did, so please bear with me. I had to write down how I felt because that's the only way I know to kind of keep myself in check. So first, my heart is with the Guerrero family as they mourn the loss of Johan. No family should have to endure a loss like this, and no community should have to bear the grief, anger, and fear that follows. I stand with Biddeford, and I share the heartbreak and outrage so many are feeling after Johan's death. I am sad that this tragedy has made members of our own community feel even less safe to live here. I want our immigrant neighbors to know they are welcome in Scarborough and do not deserve to live in fear. They are our coworkers, our classmates, our friends, our neighbors, and our family members. America has always been a nation shaped by immigrants, and their contributions continue to strengthen our local communities every day. For me, this is personal. My great-grandfather, Rudolfo Rubio Rojo, was an immigrant. He was a career diplomat and consular official for the Mexican government, helping Mexican families navigate life across borders in search of opportunity and a better life and a better future in communities like Scarborough. His work ultimately made him choose to raise his family in the United States. Because of the life he built, I have the privilege of being here today to serve our community. Over the past several days, I have found myself wondering what my great-grandfather would think about what is happening now in our country and our state, and now just 20 minutes down Route 1, where Johan was killed. I believe he would be ashamed. It would be one thing if Johan's death was an isolated incident, but it was not. In a matter of days, 3 people of Hispanic origin lost their lives across our country during encounters connected to ICE operations. These deaths were not inevitable. Regardless of where one stands on immigration policy, 3 deaths in such a short period of time should force us to confront some difficult and uncertain reality. When lives are lost, public trust erodes, and tragedies continue to occur, leadership at all levels have a responsibility to act, particularly when those actions take place in our own backyard and members of our community feel less safe. Some residents have told us that immigration policy isn't a local issue and doesn't merit the council's time. I understand that view, and in the abstract, I agree. Immigration policy is not within our purview as a council. No longer just a debate about immigration policy. It's about whether every human life has value and whether the institutions entrusted with public authority are meeting their obligation to protect the people they serve. Johan died at the hands of an ICE agent who Senator Markey from Massachusetts confirmed worked out of the Scarborough facility, a facility in our town. This has brought the conversation to our front door, whether we invited it or not. As local leaders, we don't get to opt out just because a topic is uncomfortable and contentious. Our job is to face what happens in our community, even when it's hard. So we need to talk about this respectfully and with compassion. Particularly when human lives and public safety are on the line, our expectations should rise, not fall. Our congressional delegation must act now to drive accountability, deliver reform, and protect the residents of Scarborough by working to remove the ICE facility from our town. I also know many of you tonight expect this council to do more, particularly about the ICE facility. When each of us took our oath of office, we swore to uphold the Constitution, the laws of our state, and our town charter. Supporting the rule of law can't be something we embrace only when it's convenient. If we want change that lasts, it has to be lawful, defensible, and able to withstand legal challenge. That doesn't mean we're powerless. We should seriously consider the actions within our control, including ideas presented tonight in the petition, such as limiting municipal staff cooperation with immigration enforcement and increasing transparency around the town's interactions with ICE. These ideas deserve real serious consideration, but I also want to be honest with you. None of these are ready for vote tonight. Options touching land use and enforcement requires further legal analysis before we can know what is actually within our authority. And I want to be equally honest with you about something that's perhaps harder to hear. Even if we act on every lawful option available to us, it would be premature to promise that these steps will result in the ICE facility leaving Scarborough. The town's authority is limited here. What we can do is meet this moment honestly, examine every lawful avenue available to us, be clear about what is and isn't within our power, and make sure whatever we can do will withstand judicial review. And that means our efforts cannot stop at Town Hall. Meaningful change will require action from those with greater authority, including our congressional delegation and our state officials. The town may have limits in this situation, but as leaders in our community, it is appropriate to ask others for help who have choices to make. That is one reason I support tonight's proclamation, which calls for greater oversight and accountability to those with broader authority, and requests Congress work with the federal government to examine whether the ICE facility is necessary to operate in Scarborough. Another one of those choices belongs to the owner of the property. Given the significant community disruption, loss of life, and concerns repeatedly expressed by residents, I believe Josh Soley and MRA Realty must be part of this conversation. At a minimum, residents deserve a clear public statement about whether Josh Soley and MRA Realty intends to pursue an extension of the lease when it expires. I encourage them to go one step further and engage with the General Services Administration and explore whether there is a mutually agreeable path to end the lease arrangement early, given the tragedy that occurred from the ICE agent employed from that facility. All of you also have choices to make. Beyond elected officials, federal agencies, and property owners, don't underestimate the role that you can play. Real accountability often comes from residents who stay involved, showing up, voting, and speaking out. So tonight, I would ask those of you who are frustrated to also make some choices. First, stay engaged in our elections. Federal agencies answer to federal oversight, and federal oversight comes from Congress. If you want different outcomes, civic participation matters. Get out there and talk with people to vote, and choose congressional representatives who will take appropriate action on this matter. Second, directly contact your members of Congress if you haven't already. Demand accountability, transparency, stronger oversight, and meaningful reform. When tragedies repeat themselves, accountability must extend beyond an individual and include the institution itself. The ICE agent who killed Johan worked out of the Scarborough facility. Request our congressional delegation seek to close that facility permanently or until proper action and reforms have taken place to prevent another avoidable death like this in Maine. Third, continue using your voice, speak with your neighbors, organize peacefully, advocate for change at the state, local, and federal levels. Tonight is just the start of a difficult conversation we need to have openly as a community, a conversation that I'm personally willing to continue to see what actions this council may be willing to take. So please stay engaged so that we can continue to work together to make our community a safer place for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, John. This time I'd like to go to Councillor Hayes.
Thanks, Chairman, fellows. I apologize for not being there. I'm on a planned family vacation in California. And have a couple things I'd love to share. I first want to thank everybody who showed up tonight and spoke. It takes a lot of courage to do that. I want to thank everybody who either has emailed me, people that emailed the council, people that have called. This issue, like many issues that come before us, has a lot of strong opinions, emotions, and can be, divisive. A little bit about me. I grew up in a military family. My father grew up on a farm in Maine, joined the Navy Reserves at 16, was a police officer after high school, and then had a 26-year Navy career. I grew up in a house that was full of respect for people, country, and certainly a love of country. I thought a lot about this proclamation and where I stood on the issue, and really thought a lot about my father and his commitment to our country. And I lost him a few years ago, but I know that he would have been very concerned about this for a lot of reasons that were stated tonight. And after a lot of sort of thinking and analysis and soul searching, I am supporting the proclamation. I also just want to say I have the ultimate respect for law enforcement. Our local police department, led by Chief Holmquist, is a huge point of pride for me personally and for Scarborough. I had the privilege to ride with one of the police officers earlier this year, and can just the amount of issues they're balancing every day and how busy they are is pretty mind-boggling. I have a concern about the impact on our local resources with the activity that's happening at the ICE facility. Our department's already spread thin. I'm concerned these ongoing protests are adding to the workload and stress of our department. I totally support peaceful protests. They're part of the American culture. I'm concerned for the safety of our officers that have to show up there and intervene and oversee them, and protect everybody who attends and is there. Given the heightened tensions we're experiencing, I also agree with the proclamation in really engaging our main congressional delegates. I expect a lot from them, and I really expect them to step up. I know Congresswoman Pingree has, and I'm very hopeful the other three will follow step, to really engage with Homeland Security to investigate the Scarborough ICE facility. I would like an intense review of their hiring and training practices. The vetting processes are seriously under the microscope and should be held to the highest caliber to prevent future catastrophes. I think when something this devastating occurs in any community, it's a thoughtful approach to take a pause and really, see what's going on. When I ran for town council, this certainly isn't an issue I envisioned dealing with. And like many items that we end up with on the town council, requires investigating, listening, and following our own moral compass. And when I balanced all of those sort of bottom lines for me, it convinced me that I would support the proclamation that we're discussing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. Bill?
I want to thank you for the passion that you brought to this proceeding tonight. I've been really overwhelmed. I've been moved. I really share your sense of dismay at the way in which this issue has been dealt with by the authorities. I'm a lawyer, so I've dealt with these kinds of cases, so I know the limited authority that we have to act. But this is a first step. We're going to pass this tonight, and we're not going away. I will encourage, and I think others on the town council will encourage us to take further steps to pursue this fully. We don't go away easy. This is a good group, and we're with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Can't clap even for the council. All right. Thank you.
That's acceptable.
That's it. Yeah. Thank you. Go ahead, Larry.
Thanks. Again, like all of us, I really, truly appreciate the effort to show up, the bravery of speaking publicly, and the persuasiveness and passion that the community showed tonight. I've been on the council for just about a year, and we've dealt with, in that 1 year, we dealt with substantial things. But there's never been a night like this for my career. It is really moving, and I agree that it's most likely the start of a process. And I appreciate both John and Bill's setting of expectations. Right tonight, I don't really think we know what we can and can't accomplish, but there's a strong interest in trying. I'm going to support this proclamation certainly tonight. I think it's really well crafted to accomplish what we can do now. There were comments about kind of that it didn't have teeth, and it doesn't. I agree with that. It doesn't have teeth. And as a proclamation, by definition, it wouldn't necessarily. But I think that I'm proud to be on this council, and particularly for Councilor Anderson's effort to get this done quickly and thoughtfully, to get this formed, and for Chairman Fellows for putting together a special meeting off cycle to specifically deal with this. And so it's really quite an accomplishment, as frustrating as it is that it's all we can do right now. So I think I would ask for appreciation on what we're saying here and what we're focused on here. I agree with that. The whereas statements, for the most part, are showing support and empathy for both the Guerrero's family and the city of Biddeford. It also goes on to talk about dignity and civil rights and all, but there's what I really am pleased about with this. It is not very political. And I think that that was a huge accomplishment, because this issue is wildly political. And so for us to be able to not make it divisive, to not make it something where there would be 50 people on each side of this issue and have inflammatory statements and all, was really smart on John's part. And I know he did get some input from community members as well. So I would just say that, again, I'm wildly impressed with our town, and appreciate all the effort into it. And I will absolutely support this, and am very open, as I believe we will all end up learning from tonight, is that there's at the very least, a huge opportunity for consideration of what else can be done. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Scott?
Yeah. I mean, it is good to stay neutral and whatever, but it really is a political issue. It's the higher ups in the government, and it's the Republican Party, and I'm a Republican, that is the head of ICE. And it has to come from the top, and it has to get there somehow. With this proclamation, maybe, we're elected officials, and maybe this will do some good. Like you said, it has no teeth, but maybe it will do some good. Maybe somebody in the higher ups will hear it. And maybe they'll hear this, that you cannot murder people because they're running away. Maybe they are illegal. Maybe they've done something wrong. Maybe they're resisting arrest, or, but you can't kill them for that. So, and that seems like most of the problem is that you see on the news. There's other detainees that have died in captivity. We don't know what happened there, whatever. It could be natural causes, whatever. But
This one is blatant, and the other one's in the Midwest with that woman that, everybody saw it on the news. I saw the whole video, and she was turning to leave, and that's what they wanted her to do. They wanted her to leave, and then they said they were going to arrest her, and she says, I'm leaving, I'm leaving. So instead of just letting her go, this ICE agent stood not in front of the car, kind of on the corner of it, and used it as an excuse that the car hit him to kill her. And we have to get that to the head top and say, you've got to retrain these people. That will not be tolerated. There has to be a huge punishment for any agent that acts like that. You cannot shoot somebody. It started out many years ago, even with law enforcement, that people, bad actors, very bad people, were running down policemen. And they had to protect themselves. And I get that if you got somebody charging at you, that you have to protect yourself. But this is pushing it too far. And, the message has to be sent strongly. I mean, because we already had the warnings, and now here it is right at our doorstep and happening again. This proclamation, I'm all for, because anything to get the word up to the higher ups that this kind of activity can't be tolerated. And all of the people here tonight, immigrants, this whole country is based on immigrants. Except for the American Indians that were friendly at times and let us in, and maybe they shouldn't have been so friendly. I mean, I don't know what the answer to all this is, but I think immigrants, 90%, 99% are good law-abiding citizens that just want to work. And, and there is bad actors. Now, on that side of it, we have to have immigration policies because the country has to be protected from bad actors coming in. You could have bad actors coming, and we have it. It's been proven that we've had people come in, and they call them sleeper cells, and they come in and they live in the area for a while, and the neighbors think they're beautiful people. And next thing you know, they're out detonate a bomb somewhere. This has happened. That's proof. So you do have to have ICE agents to protect us, but you can't have them killing innocent people. So this is a very serious issue, and we have to bring attention to it. As far as, I don't think there's anything we can probably do. Like I said, we can try and make our voices heard to stop an ICE agency from being in the town of Scarborough. But it's a federal thing, and it's going to be. I mean, and we have to have it for our protection, but it is a double-edged sword. But I think the issue is the training and the vetting of these people that they're hiring is a very serious, and I think that's where the major problem is that we have, and it has to be addressed. And we're bringing attention to it with this. It's the media's here, and who knows, maybe a snippet of this might get up to the head, and heads will roll, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. I'd like to start my comments by again thanking everyone for coming out, everyone for being engaged. And, as was mentioned, we know I've been up there on the other side of that podium at times, and I know it's not easy. I also want to acknowledge the handful of folks who got up and kind of went in the other direction. I know it's even harder to get up there and speak when you know that the rest of the audience feels very differently. And I appreciate everyone here for being respectful through all of that. I also neglected to mention earlier that in addition to the represented elected officials that I mentioned, we also had reached out to Biddeford Mayor LaFountain and State House Speaker Ryan Fecteau of Biddeford to express our condolences, our support and solidarity, and shared a copy of the proclamation with them. Neither one of them was able to make it this evening, but they did communicate and express their appreciation for that and for the empathy coming from their neighbors here in Scarborough. there've been a couple references to how this is definitely not something that we typically deal with. I think it's safe to say that when each of us decided to run and kind of put ourselves out there to run for town council, this was not something that we really factored into it. We were thinking about property taxes, school funding, how to smartly manage growth, how to get a handle on traffic, all those things that we spend most of our time on, justifiably. But as Councilor Anderson said earlier, sometimes things land on our doorstep and we have to step up. I think in some ways the easy thing to do here would have been to just sort of say, well, that's out of our lane. We'll just sit tight. And I know, speaking for myself, that I've always been a little resistant to the notion of sort of what I would view as sort of symbolic proclamations that feel sort of just like grandstanding. But to me, this is not symbolic. It is, I think it's meaningful, as you said, Scott, to have local elected officials being heard, speaking out across party lines. And this is not an abstract issue. This isn't some faraway foreign policy debate in the Middle East or somewhere like that. This is something that has directly impacted our community. And on that theme of community, I've lived in Scarborough for over 20 years, and during that time, I've raised kids here. We love it, but there's often sort of been this feeling that, well, Scarborough it's not like your classic small town. It doesn't have a traditional town center. Maybe it doesn't have, I think sometimes people question, is there really a sense of community in Scarborough, beyond the sports teams? I think from everything that we've seen here, really refutes that. I mean, I think one of the recurring themes that I've seen and heard over email and private conversations and tonight is a really palpable sense of ownership of this town and attachment to this town, and a sense of accountability, and a sense that things that happen in our town or that emanate from our town are somehow a reflection on us as Scarborough residents. Setting aside the legal technicalities of whose jurisdiction something falls under. And so, I had alluded to that a little bit at our meeting a couple of weeks ago, that I really got the sense that there were a lot of people in town who felt kind of embarrassed or ashamed, and the word shame was used earlier tonight, and I completely get that. On this, around this question of whether it's appropriate for the town to be engaging with the federal government or trying to influence the federal government, any town does that all the time already. We apply for federal funding for our roads, for our communication infrastructure. So to me, if we can do that, if we can ask for money, we can ask for accountability, and we can ask for protections for our community, both in Scarborough and more broadly. I think that's perfectly appropriate. And I respect the opinions of those who have reached out, and a couple of them spoke tonight as well, asking if this is a good use of our time. But again, I think Michelle spoke to it well, that there comes a time when I think each of us as counselors and us collectively, we sort of have to be guided by our moral compass and our consciences. So I respect those who may disagree, but I strongly support this proclamation. I, again, appreciate the work that John and members of the community put into it. I do think it is very well balanced. I think it's apolitical. Although, again, I think Scott made a good point that something like this is inherently political. And I think sometimes when people say, well, you shouldn't politicize that, well, what does that really mean? Because to me, politics in the best sense means using the authority of government and using power, starting with the people, to affect change. Not politics in some cynical sense, and that's how I view this. So again, I appreciate everyone who's here tonight and everyone on this council. I think, anyone who's followed this council knows it's pretty rare for us to have a unanimous sentiment on anything, and we haven't voted yet, but I think to have the level of support that we've seen expressed here tonight is pretty remarkable. It speaks to the nature of this issue, and I think to the way in which the proclamation was crafted. And as many have said, this is probably just an initial step. We've got some more due diligence to do and some more soul searching and fact finding to do. And but I'm proud that we're taking this step tonight. So with that, if there are no other comments, I would ask Tody to call the vote, through the roll call.
Counselor Doherty?
Yes.
Counselor Kane?
Yes.
Counselor Donovan?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Counselor Hayes?
Yes.
And Chairman Fellows?
Yes. Thank you. That concludes our actions tonight. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay. Yeah, all right. All right.
It's appreciated.
We've bent the rules a little bit tonight, but we have to draw the line. All right. Thank you. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
All in favor? All right, we'll do that by acclamation. Thank you all.
Thank you.